I hope that never gets old. I hope I keep this same feeling all the time. See, look at that. Slide the headphones on. Music plays.
Over the top.
There it
Episode
is.
5, if you haven't seen it. Miles makes an over the top Stallone reference.
Yes, truck driving, arm wrestling, Stallone reference. So
I don't know. This is episode 7. And I think we're sort of getting something of a hang of this thing. And the topic today. So, first of all, one thing that we haven't done on any of the episodes yet is like a 2-second introduction to say, like, hey.
Oh, who we are?
Yeah, like.
It's not important.
It's not that important. You're not watching. But, like,
well, maybe
that's the MA of More About. That's Miles Alexander over there with the beard.
Yeah, and the man bun.
And a little, like, squirrely cue coming down.
You know, it's this one piece of hair.
You gotta watch the YouTube channel if you're not yet.
We won't get in.
So that's Miles, and I'm Tony, TU.
Yeah.
And we talk about stuff that, we normally would text about. On this
We've just invited you into our text thread. That's all it is.
And so in today's episode of the Tell Us More About podcast, we're going to talk about small businesses. We use the word business because I think that there's room to talk about business as a concept at large, but we're small business owners. And business, there's a lot to talk about. I've asked Miles a bunch of questions already as I'm now in year 2 of owning this business.
Okay.
I've opened other businesses in the past, and this one.
Speak on that. Give us your 2-minute who you are.
Sure. So, TU, Tony Ubertacio. Yeah.
That's
so right now I'm running a marketing business with my wife, Sarah. It's called Making It Creative. To support that marketing business with marketing efforts, we started a podcast, Making It in Asheville.
Which was the most beautiful, idea ever.
Yeah, it turned out, the hope would be that it would be about half as worthwhile of a time spend as it has been for us. And so that's been an absolutely incredible ride. We started in May of 2019. We're in mid-August of 2020. So what a roller coaster of however many 14, 15 months that is. Also got married last year. So
NBD.
So that is a small business and a relationship that I would say is thriving right now.
So you work with your wife?
Work with my wife. Yeah. And we subcontract out a bunch of work. And it's been growing and is exciting. And I look forward to talking that. I also have a past version of a consultancy, started in the state of New York when I worked in and lived in New York. It had what at the time meteoric revenue growth for me at least, and then not so long, I would say, after it spiked in revenue, I stopped doing the sales things that I had been doing to get the revenue where it was and then deliver. So both have been service-based businesses.
Okay,
but I also have time spent in just kind of consulting and coaching of others, entrepreneurs, solopreneur type things, and then time spent in the startup and tech world. And so that is my summary professionally, with a bunch of other odds and ends that we could get into.
That's such a foreign world to me. Like the idea of startup and tech and things like that.
Because so what we'll talk about in the episode, I suspect, is a little bit of call it business 101. Primary thought about business 101 is make more money than you spend.
That's a good goal.
Throw step 1 out of the window on most traditional startup frameworks. It's there's a whole growth trough, and so you're investing well more than you're making so that you can one day.
That's where the venture capitalists come in, right?
And then you hit the brakes and they fly right by, and so you pull back on all these things that you've been doing that are excessive by way of spend, and then all of a sudden you're highly profitable for a quarter, and then you sell at some multiple. It's all very weird stuff, and so we're not necessarily going into startup conversations today.
That feels like a big topic.
And
Yeah.
it's a part of business as a concept. And so
Yeah.
I'm at
Uh,
1 year. I feel like I'm, again, I'm the pseudo intellectual from
That's right.
Midnight in
I
Paris. Did
love
you
that.
watch
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
video?
Yeah, I did.
So
It was
so
awesome. It was
if you're
so good.
not going
Yeah.
to the website
Hold on,
show
which one is
notes,
it that one?
if you're not going to the website
Yes.
show notes pages, we add these video like stuff. This is all kind of stream of consciousness.
Yep.
We go
Yeah.
back and we add stuff,
Correct
that-
things.
correct things, and like when we make a reference, if we can, we find the thing and put it in there. So
Yeah.
Midnight in Paris has a very good trailer, and I feel like the guy who's a pseudo intellectual.
Tony didn't like the movie, but liked the trailer. Well, you like the
Good
trailer
movie.
more than you like the
Trailer is
yeah.
like it's a hit track of just like the best moments.
The pseudo intellectual. I guess I'm the crusty old dude in that, not in that same movie, but just in the same kind of metaphor. Miles Alexander. I am an architect here in Nashville. I have Form and Function Architecture, which is a local architecture firm. It's primarily does state, residential, and commercial work in Western North Carolina. I also have Vignette Architecture, which is I have a partner in that, Justin Smith. We have offices in Rock Hill and in Charleston, South Carolina. We technically hold a Nashville office as well. We do primarily residential and commercial. The Charleston office does mostly residential. The Rock Hill office is about 50-50. And up here in Nashville, it's almost all residential for Vignette. And then I have a construction company up here in Nashville too, Mac Constructors. So that's a lot. I've been in business. Let's see. I've had Form and Function since April of 2010. And so started off as Alexander Design Studio, rebranded through some mutual friends at Atlas Branding and Design. Great people. Yeah, this is their old office.
So I think about it as like this was the shelf for the smaller version of their hermit crab.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
like
true. Yeah.
Every hermit crab needs its own newer, bigger shell.
Yeah, this is
we
it.
just stepped into it. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
it's nice. So I've been in business for about 10 years, working for myself. And in a variety of just me and partnerships. I've got, I think, between all the companies, about 10 employees. And don't let that fool you. 3 offices and 10 employees and 3 businesses. It sounds really official. It's half a step above like a sole practitioner just trying to figure out what to do day to day.
So that thank you, and listener, I hope that was helpful. If you were wondering who we've been for the last 6 episodes, so business, right? I'm very interested in the. It seems like it might be complex. You always downplay stuff, and so I'm going to try and poke and pry because I don't necessarily believe when you say like, oh, it's the tail wagging the dog. I don't know what I'm doing. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Because you do know what you're doing, and so
I have made a lot of mistakes to figure out what to do.
Cool.
Right.
And so like
correctly.
Thinking about there's so many ways that we can go about it. My thought is before we get into like how you're actually running your businesses or how Sarah and I have kind of like fallen
structured.
We talk about the idea of like starting a business.
Yeah.
And setting off on the path less traveled.
Well, I will say, not in my opinion, not everybody wants, and this was new. This was a surprise to me. Not everyone wants to run their own business. Some people don't want that headache. They don't want the hassle. They just like coming in, doing the work, and then going home. And so for some people who have more of an entrepreneurial spirit, for sure, I think starting a business or service or something is just something you feel driven to do and want to do.
Yeah.
And so it is, at a certain point, you either get frustrated with the condition you're in and make a change to start your own thing, or you somehow seek to become a owner or leader in a place you're already at. And so just from my experience with architecture firms, like traditionally you can work in an architecture firm, eventually work there long enough that you can buy into the firm but somehow get promoted to the level of principal, and then you become a percentage owner or what.
Yeah.
you own shares or stock in the company, and then you can sell those to people when you're ready to cash out, or what,
Pretty much
or
back to the other owners is
yeah,
my guess.
back to the other owners, or to someone else coming behind you. And
Okay.
so, so I think from just some people feel called or feel led to or have a desire to start their own business,
Yeah.
and I was one of those, and it, it was never a question of when, it was just a question of how,
Hmm.
because I knew I was going to do it at some point, and I just kind of made it happen. There's no, again, there's no blueprint. For every business starts differently. Every business is financed differently, has different kind of project lists, has different kind of
Yeah.
requirements. So
So they say, so this is a metaphor I'm pulling from a different space, but they do say that like every happy home is happy in its own way, and every it's one of the two. It's just like
okay,
every broken home is like broken in the same ways, or
yeah,
like every happy home is happy in the same ways. So like while every business is fundamentally different because got a different LLC, it's got a
yeah,
different
yeah, different
owner, it's
corporate
got different
structure. Yeah,
clients.
yeah, different
There are
service.
some truths that could span at least portions of the continuum of all of the businesses,
Yep.
and there are some. While there's no individual playbook for your business, there are things that you can look to as advice, as
Oh, for sure.
inspiration,
Yeah,
as guidance, as you attempt to solve for. Am I an entrepreneur? Do I want to start this?
yeah,
And so I have been wired. I'll agree with you. I've been wired to be the type who says like, I think I'd rather do this myself.
yeah,
Uh, but I'm aware of the truth that the best way to experience upward mobility and like call it low level like wealth
hmm,
accumulation is by being an employee at a company.
yeah.
Like that is the safest, surest route
Yeah, yep,
to the air quotes American dream
yep,
of putting your children in a better place than
yep,
where you
yeah.
were when you were a kid, is like get a good stable
Air
job.
quote, good job. Yeah.
Yeah, stable job.
Then COVID comes along and changes
Yeah,
everything.
spend less than you make,
Yep.
put money into savings, put money into
Yeah.
investment accounts. And like that is a surefire way, air quotes,
Yeah.
to experience that upward mobility. It's got its own bag of risks built
Yeah.
right into that
Yeah.
equation.
Yep.
And so there's something to be said about this self-authorship, or like the ability to, you know, master your own destiny by taking more of the variables and putting them in your own hands.
Yeah, for sure. That for me was the point where I got was like, yeah, I need to be in control of this, and the decisions I'll make, I'll live and die by. I will say, in general, most entrepreneurs and small business owners are probably calculated risk takers to on the kind of like risk aversion scale. They are probably on the low side, where they just, or high side, whichever one is the one where
Open to more
they're
risk.
open to more risk.
Yeah.
And while you cannot be wildly crazy in how you run, and I guess you certainly can. The most successful ones are taking calculated risk,
Yeah.
because it's running a small business is a risk every day. It's doing the best with the information you have at the time, and making a plan based off of that.
One of the ways I've heard it described, and this is in investing as well, is that uh, it's perpetually you're making calculated risks, and the goal is to never take a risk. Like they say, it might happen once a decade,
Okay.
but take a risk where the downside is the business is gone.
Yeah.
You want to avoid those risks as often as you possibly can.
For sure.
And every once in a while, you have to either totally rework the business structure because that plastic isn't the plastic that people can consume anymore. So something changed, and now it's like we're either going to beat the market to it, or the market's going to beat us, and we're done.
Yeah.
We need to make this risk. And so it's. I think that you're right. It's like and it's very interesting. I have a pretty wide open risk tolerance profile.
Yeah.
and my wife does not. And so
Yep.
that's been a
Same.
fun learning experience, and it's forced growth on both of our parts to either find the words to communicate why my gut says that this is absolutely fine, there's nothing to be concerned about, and like find words and
Well,
document it and put some numbers behind it and see if it actually has any truth to it. But I'm with you. I think that there is a risk profile. I don't necessarily think that there is a anyone who tells you that a route is risk free
uh,
is lying to
yeah.
you, or just
There's.
doesn't understand
Mhm.
the complexity of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, go to school, work real hard, become a doctor is a lie. Like, that's not a it's
Yeah, I
not a
know, pediatric orthodontist. That's really
go back to making it in Nashville.
yeah, right there.
But like it's I don't know. So all right, so you have a risk profile, you have this idea.
Yeah.
Miles, how would you, before jumping into starting a business, do you have any advice to someone who thinks that they have this thing that they could start a business with?
I'm in a service-based business, so it's a little different than most. But if you think you can do it better, I'm just going to make an assumption. Most people, if they're going to start a business, either know something about the market or are already in that market, that realm, and are either thinking of a way to do it better or thinking of a way that they could carve out their little corner of the
Hmm.
market for themselves. And so, um, I think that if you're sitting there thinking about doing it, you're the person that's eventually going to do it, because if that seed that's in you just tends to grow and tends to get, it just kind of eats away at you until you feel the need that you have to do it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think I can't remember the moment that I knew that I had to do
Yeah.
it, but I do remember feeling a lot like I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And I had to have some really hard conversations with Ashley about, one of the things, being a risk, you have to be able to look your wife in the eye and say, hey, we might have to move back in with my parents. How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so hopefully it doesn't happen, but
Yeah.
it's a risk.
And
And they got
and
to be able to go along on the ride with you. So, but the world always needs whatever it is, unless you're creating something new, just out of the blue.
yeah.
The world is always going to need doctors, lawyers, architects. They're always going to need homes built. They're always going to need renovations. They're always going to need packaging. And
Yeah.
so you have to find a way to get into that market and hold on to it, and then make it yours, and make the business yours and an extension of you.
I love it, and I think that if I'm gonna level that up a step, the thoughts that come to mind are finding a problem
Yep.
that you uniquely can solve in some way, and the unique part of the solution might just be that you are the person delivering that service.
Okay.
Right? That alone could be unique. It's your unique fingerprint on architecture. Other people could find there are architects around.
Yeah.
So like it's you that makes your architecture business unique in the most simplest form. And so like there's a problem that needs solving. Houses need to be built, and you don't start by like just nailing a piece of wood to another piece of wood. That's not a good way. Just maybe I don't know. Right, but so like there's a problem that needs to be solved, or there's a population that you want to serve.
Yeah.
Like those are the
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
ways that I see the foundation of a business showing up is, hey, I am real, like I have this idea for solving this problem in a novel way, or it could look a lot like somebody else's, but you're always playing catch up. You want distinction in the market, so I don't
Yeah.
like the idea of just like opening a franchise of somebody else's thing. It's cool because you get a playbook, but
Yeah. There's pluses and
there's
minuses of
pluses
that.
and minuses. And so I'm always about like, can you paint with your own unique brush? Can you put your thumbprint on it? Because that's to me that's brand, and that's got more power in it than just being another version of the same thing.
Yep.
And we can talk about why. So it's population, service. Who can I serve? There's this type of community. I'm going to try and support them in some way or another. And until I find what the solution is for supporting them, I don't know if I should start a business. But I can reach out and say, hey, what do you need? Certain population. They
Yeah.
tell me, I make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I will say one of my friends owns a business here in town, and how I would never have classified him as someone who was a who was looking to own a business. He was working at a business that was servicing. It's a digital business here in town that was servicing clients, a number of clients in the healthcare world, and the company he was working with got bought out for a ridiculous amount of money. And so the company he had been working for before it was purchased was servicing some more smaller clients locally, and he noticed that this big conglomerate bought it, and the service for those small ones just started falling off and dropping. And so he said, "Hey, I can start a business just like the one I used to work at, and pick all of these small clients back up who aren't happy with the big faceless corporation that they're now having to deal with."
Mm.
And so he's got quite a successful business about that now, with servicing those clients that felt underserved
Yeah.
once they got taken over. And so he was able to just basically reset, start his own business, picking up, recognizing that there was a hole missing in the market
Yeah.
for service. So
And I love that. And so then, the the if you have a population that you want to serve, or if you have a problem that
yeah,
you can solve, I think that you are well on your way to saying, like, this could be a business.
yes. So identify that.
Identify one of
Yeah.
those or both of those or somehow or another, and then the next step to me
Okay.
is, can you get a customer? I would
Okay.
advise that starting. So I play a little loose and fast. Not every industry I don't think you can do this with. I'm not sure as
Okay.
an architecture firm what the process would be, but in the type of service that I have delivered historically, which is marketing services or sales services, theoretically, I can deliver that as a 1099. Like, I, as a person, can
Okay.
deliver it.
Yeah.
As a person, you can go and buy or get spec designs manufactured
Yes.
locally
Yeah.
or in China. And so I would attempt to sell the thing
Okay.
that the solution, the product, sell it online, sell it
Yeah.
in person,
Yeah.
and get get customers in a
Yes.
dream state
Yeah.
before you go through and pay for a lawyer for an LLC, or like use
Yeah.
LegalZoom, or do whatever the thing is that you're gonna do it yourself.
Yeah.
I say move really fast,
Yeah.
get a customer,
Yeah.
because a lot of I don't want to say a lot of people
Get customers, generate revenue, worry about the problems later.
worry about the problems later,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's this and the word that's coming to mind for me is masturbatory. But there
Yes.
but there
Yeah.
is a certain level of patty cake that
Yeah.
people like to play because they think it's activity, they think it's action, they think it's
Yeah.
progress,
Yeah.
and it's
It's certainly important.
it
It's
can be.
important to the process, but
it can be, but
yeah.
like, your logo is not the reason your
You're
first
yeah.
customer buys from you.
Yeah, that's exactly
Not the
right.
first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eventually, customers buy because your brand, like, because it looks right, because
Yeah.
your website functions, but the first ones don't. They're typically.
No. The first people them, and you're leveraging a relationship. They don't care what your business name is. They don't
Yeah.
care. You're not going to obviously, if it's your first customer, I mean, you're cold calling. You're just a hustler. But no, there is and I guess it goes back to the type of person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm very much the same way in that regard. Like, yeah, I did a lot of, and everyone does real stupid stuff. Everyone gets this phone call in their first 2 or 3 years of business where your accountant says, "Hey, we need a check at the end of the year for $20,000," and you're like, "Wait, what?" Like, I don't have $20,000. I didn't make $20,000, and they're like, "Yeah, but that's just how the taxes are." And so,
That was
yeah, everybody gets it. I got it.
And the year was 2014,
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
oh my goodness.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And then
Because
off for
if
5 years.
if I'm sitting on $20,000 in the bank, that just means my accountant would have asked for 60, because you're going to make mistakes. No one who is starting a small business does it all right the first time, because if you had all the knowledge to start a business properly the first time, and I will say this though, every business I've started has gotten better. Every time we have started a business, it has been for lack of a better term, more legitimate every time, or at least is more thorough.
Yeah.
Like the paperwork's been. But yes, you can spend if you are an organizing type of person, you will spend a lot of time getting articles of incorporation, getting all your tax structures set up. You will spend a lot of time researching whether do I want to run payroll or do I want to take a K1 distribution, and and while that is all important, it does not matter for your first client. It doesn't matter what your S corp designation is until you get a client and money in hand or selling a product.
Yeah.
And so there is the and I remember, and again, I'm thinking back a decade ago, there is kind of an overwhelming sense that, man, I just need to have everything set up right.
Right.
And it'll just work. Or if I
Right.
don't have it set up right, it won't work.
And there's I love we don't watch, Sarah and I don't watch TV, like we don't have cable.
Okay.
But when I was growing up and like Shark Tank.
Okay.
Love
Yeah,
Shark
my kids love
That's awesome.
Shark Tank.
So
and I love them watching it because I'm like, see, go do something.
So like the name of the game, if I'm watching Shark Tank with kids, this is just a concept, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm pausing after they say, so it's like, and we're going to
What's the valuation?
Yeah, $10,000 for 10% of my business. Pause. How much are they valuing
What's
their
the
business at?
valuation on
Right?
their
Like,
business?
because a little bit of it like happens fast, and they're in their notebooks.
Yeah.
And it's
And
not
they don't
hard,
need to write it down.
and they
in
don't need to
notebook.
write it down. But like it does make some sense. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
what is your cost per part?
Well, exactly. And that,
and
like,
how much you sell
never
it for.
exposed to that as a
Right.
child.
So
Never.
good. But then there are moments that I think send mixed signals, right?
Okay.
So Mr. Wonderful will always say, "Do you have a patent?"
Yeah.
And the answer he wants is yes. Because if you have the patent,
You
then
control it.
You control it. Theoretically, you have built a legitimate moat around your business.
Yep.
There's a million ways to go around patents. There's a million ways to break patents. China doesn't really care about American patents.
Nah.
So like if your product is novel, someone's going to knock it off.
Yep.
But a patent could be helpful. This guy so we were over the in-laws not long ago and put on Shark Tank.
Okay.
Guy built a handle for a baby carrier, portable, the ones that you carry.
Yeah.
Not a stroller, but
Yeah.
the carriage
Car
thing.
seats. Yeah.
The car seats.
Gigantic pain
handle
in the
for
butt
it.
to carry.
It seems like it. And so like, all right, novel
You
idea.
got to do the little arm loop thing, by the way.
So that was one of the reasons why this guy didn't get money is because
The guy was like, just
they were like, here's the arm loop thing, and it's solved. But the real reason why they didn't invest in this guy is because they said, do you have a patent? He said, yes. Cool. And they're like, how much have you sold? And he was, I don't know, $20,000, $50,000 worth of product, which is great to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, so why is your valuation so high? And he's like, well, I put $750,000 into these patents. And they're like, well, everyone goes, cool, well, we're not investing with you because we don't trust your decision making.
Yeah.
So there's these two conflicting arguments. One is that like patents and having the paperwork in order is a good thing, but also pursuing patents and paperwork
to the
detriment
ruin of your
business
yes, exactly.
is nonsensical.
Yeah.
And so the thought that I always have when people or when friends have ideas and they're like, I just don't know, like I want to think about the trademark, maybe I go through the patent process. I say like, or like NDAs at early stages of some businesses, I'm just like, you don't get it. Like either A, no one cares. No one cares about your idea. They're too busy with their own shit. Like no one's got time to pursue this thing. Otherwise they might have already.
Yep.
So like get real. No one cares. And the other thing is if someone's going to copy it, they're going to copy it.
They're going to copy it regardless.
And the name of the game is speed at that point. Moving fast, not moving
You mean
slow.
Yeti versus Arctic coolers?
Yeah. You kidding me?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm sure Yeti's got patents on patents or doesn't, but it does, like it's a brand competition.
That's exactly at that point it's brand. And I will say we are probably a little bit skewed because we're both service based. We're not product based. I would love to sell a product because like when you sell a product, and this is if someone's thinking about starting a small business and you're going to be service based, it's just a very different mentality than a product based because Shark Tank is all about products. It's not about services.
Right.
And so typically I can speak for me and a couple of my friends who are design professionals, engineers and things like that too. we do the work because we want to do the project. We don't care about the money.
Mm.
Like whereas people who sell products say, I can make this widget for X amount of dollars. I can sell this widget for Y. How do I get Y as high as possible, and how do I get X as low as possible?
Mm.
And that, you know,
the margin of Z.
yeah, if the margin of Z,
big.
yeah,
And then
stack
multiply
that
it by
paper.
multiply by the amount of times you sold it. And
Yeah.
and there's something
By the
there's
way, let me
something
just turn that
easy
around. Shout out
math.
to Izzy's coffee.
There's something easy math in a product business, and I think that you're right.
Yeah, but
And
it's more complicated because you get into the branding of it, you get into the marketing of it, and you can't patent my service, but you can also you just don't you can't practice architecture the same way I practice architecture. So I'm just inherently different. We talking about practice, yeah.
we talk about
We talking about practice.
yeah. So
So
I think
products
that's a great
have
point.
the thing,
Product,
yeah.
and that is like one of the big kind of lines in the sand. And I'm making friends now in Asheville. Making friends in Asheville. Mom, I have friends in Asheville.
Look at
But
least 3. Well, at least 1. Well, did you
My
count your wife in
yeah,
that?
2.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
but like friends with these product businesses, and it's incredible, and it's a whole new problem set to solve for, because there's this new version, like it's lag, and so you have inventory controls, and you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
great that demand skyrocketed. I got a friend whose demand skyrocketed, burned through his inventory. He
He's
couldn't
sitting
make
there-
money for a while.
Well, it's exactly. And then you have to get loans based on purchase orders or loans versus inventory and stock. And so it's a whole different animal to that. Again, I'm just not knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
I know enough about it. So
And so if you're at early days, I would just say like get some CAD renderings of a product, like draw it,
Yeah.
design it, scope it. The people who really, 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 really need that product or service, specifically product, will sign up for your Kickstarter, will prepay and
Yeah, put a
wait for
deposit down.
delivery,
Yeah.
put a deposit
Yeah.
down. Like validate the assumptions that you have about the unique service that you think you can deliver, or problem that you think that you can solve, or product that fits in this needed space in the marketplace. And there
you're
is
preaching right now.
and there is a difference, my friend. There's a difference between asking someone, "Do you think this is a good idea?"
Uh-huh.
and saying, "Give me $50, and you have one waiting for you on the first, inventory run."
or whatever. Yeah.
Very different thing. You'll start seeing how legit this idea is, because people will be like, "Yo, that's sick. I love it.
Here's
It's
$50.
so cool."
Yeah.
And
Or
then
not.
you say, "Give me some money," and they're like, "Well, so what happened was,
yeah.
oh, you mean
maybe
mean
next week."
put money?" Okay, so
Yeah.
there's a difference between, "Do you think this is a good idea?" and "Give me money."
I've never been involved in a Kickstarter.
I've been involved in several.
Okay. I think that might be a generational thing.
Well, yeah, and it was a very, so at this point, Kickstarter is a fundamentally different beast than it was when it
Oh, I'm sure.
when it
Yeah.
first came out.
Yeah.
People are kickstarting with the product already finished, right?
Okay.
Like, and they're using it as like a force multiplier for some sort of a
Okay.
release moment. That
Yeah.
it wasn't what it was intended for, and it's fine that that's what it is now. But when it started, it was like, "Hey, here's this idea."
Yeah, I've got this great idea. Like I loved the idea of
Yeah.
it, and I just never got involved in it. So
Well,
So
stick
I'm
around,
scared,
people. By
the
by
internet.
season 3, I think that we'll have our own product of some
I
form.
can't wait. I can't wait.
All right, so we found, or we have loose assumptions on here's who you are, and here's what the world needs to look like for you to say, "I think I have a fit."
Yep.
Don't slow down because of paperwork, but also maybe pay attention to it, and know that if you have revenue, you
Yep.
can solve for those problems.
Yeah.
If you don't have
money
revenue,
fixes. Yeah, money fixes a lot of problems.
revenue
Yeah.
fixes a lot of
Yeah.
problems. My next thought
Okay.
is just on the difference between running a small business and then running a startup, which
Okay.
people use interchangeably, and then the other thought is being a business owner
Okay.
versus being an entrepreneur.
Okay, yeah. I was hoping we were going to talk
Okay.
about the type of person who wants to run a business day to day, the type of person who wants to create a business and manage it from afar, or the type of person who wants to create a business, build it, and then sell it, monetize it. And there's no wrong person in that.
No,
I
no.
can Like, I mean, my friend who created his business, like, the end goal is to monetize it.
Yeah.
Like, he loves providing the service he provides, but at the end of the day, he is building it to sell it, which is crazy to me because that's not even in my
Yeah.
wheelhouse.
So, great book on the topic, and there's
Yeah.
a couple that I'm going to shout out and put links to in our show notes page. But Built to Sell, great name
Oh, yeah.
for a book about how to build a business that
Yeah.
you can then sell. If he hasn't read it, he could.
He
and
probably
should.
would.
He probably,
He's a smarter man than me.
cool. But yeah, so I think that you're right. You broke it into like 3 types of people. I think that that's probably truer than my 2. There's a large distinction between being, in my opinion, and a book that backs it up is the E Myth.
Yep. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
E-Myth
The E-Myth.
Revisited
Yep. Mm-hmm.
is where, Sarah and I are small business owners.
Yeah.
We are not entrepreneurs at this point.
Yes.
We are running a business and working in a business. We effectively have given ourselves jobs.
Yes.
We have jobs.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And those
You
jobs,
created your job.
we've created a job, and we get paid better than our last jobs, which is cool. And so
I mean, that's a plus.
so the job is not a bad
2
job.
years in, that's quite an accomplishment.
It's
yeah.
we're blessed.
Didn't happen to
Blessed
me
and highly
so
favored.
much that way. Blessed
So-
and highly favored.
So we are employees in a business. The business we just happen to own at this point,
Okay.
and it's a full blown job. It is not entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Also, one of the key definitions that I assign to the word entrepreneur is that the thing that you are growing, like entrepreneurs, air quotes, by definition, create value, right? So if I'm an
Yes,
entrepreneur,
their job is to
Create value.
is to create value for that business.
yeah,
Yes.
and
And that's how I knew my buddy was there to sell his business. He was
Yeah.
like, my only job is to create more value.
create more value, and
Yeah.
and then have a an exit. And
Yes.
entrepreneurs build things in effect to sell them.
Yes.
We're
Which feels cold hearted for someone who is like, because I run my business.
right, and so a business can be a product. We talked about
I
Yeti.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
so
yeah,
a business can be a product while it's selling services, while it's selling widgets.
Yeah.
If you zoom out far enough, the business can be a product, can be a widget.
Yeah.
And so, if it were Ubertaccio LLC, it's never getting sold. I'm a business owner.
Yep. That was one. I started out as Alexander Design Studio. I realized if my name was attached to it, it's me.
Yeah.
The business is always me. Even if I have 1,000 employees, it's Miles.
Yeah.
And while I wanted to have impact, I didn't want that. Like, I wanted it to be its own entity that could have its own idea, its own brand, and that it could move left or right where I could help steer it, but I wasn't personally the person.
Yeah.
So, because again, nobody wants to buy Miles.
No,
I'm not worth anything.
and it sort of can't. And there have been moments, like there have been businesses that had the owner's last name or whatever it is that get sold, and it's a weird transaction where like you can't like your last
Yeah.
there are parts of you trademarked that you can't use now.
Yeah.
And so while it was never a chance that a business that I've created so far would be built to sell.
Yeah.
That I think is a gigantic distinction, is the concept of being a business owner, aka creating a job for yourself, and being an entrepreneur. And the definition in the E-Myth is working in the business
Yep.
versus working
Working out.
on the business.
And what's limiting me is I am legally required to work in the business.
As a
As
architect.
a licensed architect, as a owner of the firm, I'm
Wow.
legally required to be there, to be involved, to review the drawings, because I sign and seal all the drawing sets that go out.
So it's sort of like a I'm just learning anesthesiologist, right?
Yeah,
So like you
yeah.
have people who are actually executing it, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with the doctor of anesthesiology.
Yeah, whatever.
Who signs off on
yeah,
some
because
sort
there's
of
there's the person who's actually doing. There's the person who writes basically the instructions of how to do it, and then they hand that off to the people who actually do it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's but at the end of the day, whoever the head person is in charge. But same kind of thing with me. And so the only way that I can generate a business that becomes either I'm not involved on the architecture side of things. Construction is a completely different animal, but on the architecture side of things, is I get enough partners involved that they handle everything, and
Mm.
I don't have to be there. And so, but what ends up happening if you do that long enough and you don't do it well enough, all the partners do like this. Why are we paying this guy again? What's
Mm.
he doing? And so, and so that gets into your business and how you manage and how you treat your employees if you have them, and things like that, and
Mm.
partnerships. And some people aren't built for partnerships, and some are,
Yeah.
and they're just marriages. And so, with with the exception of people who are actually married to
Married.
their partners, which
So,
R.I.P. That's a hard row to hoe.
so that brings up a concept that I in the way that I had thought about the episode, I never even necessarily thought about is um, ownership of a business
Hmm.
and ownership of an idea. And so we said that we would stay away from startups because they seem to break some of the fundamental rules. It's still you're looking for a population that you're going to serve or a product a problem you're going to solve. The difference is like startups are built in such the definition of a startup is that it should be experiencing high growth,
Okay.
like explosive vertical
Okay.
growth. Otherwise, it's a small business. People use sometimes the words interchangeably. Yeah, I got this startup. And like, no, Sarah and I, we have a small business.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Not
just
okay.
small and it started recently. It's
Yeah.
not a
It's
it's
not
not a startup. Definition, high growth. And
okay.
so to achieve high growth often or to build the tech or to build what you need capital up front.
Mm.
My business didn't need capital up front, or not much more than what we had
Yeah.
because it's service. Capital is like a couple bucks, put a website up. Didn't even need the website. Needed to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Hey, do you need support?
Leverage whatever personal relationships you have.
Exactly. So,
Or start a podcast, getting
sort
in
of,
front of lots of local businesses to say, hey, tell us about you. But also, we're a marketing firm.
yeah,
It's brilliant.
it
Brilliant.
it
It was
is
brilliant.
it's fulfilling.
You can just say
I
yes.
so I
You can
love
just
that
say
it worked
yes.
the way that I
Yeah.
thought that it might,
Yeah.
and it has been the most fulfilling relationship building decision that we've ever made. It just so happens to have also helped us
In the business.
have a small
Yeah.
local marketing footprint. So startups difference is venture capital and or angel investment. So like you need to pull in cash early days
Yeah.
to build the thing that you are envisioning, and it typically just the V1 of the thing because you'll iterate over time. And taking cash from people to start a project
Yeah.
means often that you're going to give up some ownership. And so you're talking about
Back to Shark Tank.
you're talking about partnerships and in the architecture space, but there's there's investor relationships.
Yeah, there's some
There's
people who just
partners.
want to give you money and see a percentage return,
Mhm.
and they don't want to be bothered with the day to day.
Yeah. Do any of your businesses have investors?
Not anymore.
Okay.
When I started on my own, I had an uncle who gave me a small sum of money.
Yeah,
And
like a Trump $1 million
like,
small.
it was a small 1.2, 1.5 million, that's modest. It was like 20 grand.
Cool.
And
That's a ton of money. For
back
a
in
small
the day,
business.
man, I was sweating, and I had it was a 5-year loan, and I think I had 10,000 due after 3 years and 10,000 due, and I was paying I think 7% interest every year, so I'd write my check for $1,400 or
Mhm.
whatever it was, and sweating it, just
Yeah.
killing me, nervous the whole time about
I
it.
mean, it's a
So
being on the hook to anyone
yeah.
is huge, and even if it's a faceless big bank.
Well, and that gets back to the type of person you are, I think. So we do development work on the architecture and construction side, and we do have, like we're doing vertical development, building buildings. We do have certain clients who just have a stack of money that they use it to do private investment, and they say, here's the money, I want to see X% return. Let me know when it's ready, and within a year or 2 years
Yeah.
or what we have some agreed upon. And so that type of business, if you can have the person who feels responsible to that, then that's great. Some business owners and some developers will take that money and I'll use most of it for what I said, and then I'll use the other thing over here to do something else to see if that works. And so they end up kind of like squandering, or at least raising the risk level for that private equity that didn't really need to be there, that might end up backfiring and burning down the whole business in the process. And so it comes back to that calculated risk and how you're able to control yourself and maintain focus on what your goal is.
Yeah. And the one note that I always think of is like 100% of zero is
Mm.
zero,
Mm-hmm.
and 50% of thousand is a lot more than zero.
That's exactly, yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are times and spaces where I'm in love with the concept of like bootstrapped, wildly successful,
Uh,
wholly owned
yeah,
private
but you're gonna go
businesses.
through some rough
You
times.
can, and there's this whole push in the world that I pay attention to, which still leans slightly startup, but has pushed back against that and is now slightly more small business
Mm-hmm.
that builds tech. Um, you look at people like DHH, which I don't remember what it even stands for anymore, but he built a tech company called Basecamp and 37 Signals, and they have these books that they put out called Rework, and it like doesn't need to be crazy at work, and they're building tech for I don't know millions of people, and he works 9 to 5, and they launch really great products, and they pay their employees well, and it's wholly owned private, and it's been
Yeah.
slow growth over decades, and there's these people that like are descendants of that school of thought that say like I need 1,000 customers that pay $100 a
Yeah.
month, and I'm running a killer software
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
or I need w- a couple clients that pay all about the same thing. I got 3 people on my team,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's diversified, but it's safe, and I don't need to grow it to 1,000 clients
Yep.
in 10 cities.
And so, yeah, that's you definitely, as Wu Tang says, you want to protect your neck, and so
Diversify your
yeah,
bonds.
diversify your bonds. So you definitely don't want to have one client that you're beholden to. That if that one client goes left, right, or middle, it could ruin your business. You definitely don't want that. And so, um,
We're close to that, and what I'll say is the gift is that if that client does go left, right, or those clients that sit as those type of big ones for us,
yeah,
if they go left, right, or otherwise, we've strategically been putting a ton of money away for taxes,
yeah,
and we've taken way more out than we need to for taxes, and
yeah.
then we also have started these savings accounts in the business. So like we have what I'll call is runway.
Okay,
If
yeah.
everyone just says you guys are the worst, we're out of here.
Well, yeah,
Like we cool,
yeah.
and then I just go back into
And
full
that's
court sales mode.
and as hard as that is to do with a startup, because you're barely getting by in the beginning, in a startup or small business,
Yeah.
when you first get going, it's so hard to do that. Especially, I would say you guys are young, you don't have children, you've got a little bit lower overhead, so
A
your
lot lower.
flexibility in that is easier. When I started, I had 3 kids, and so like I had a minimum, like I just had a minimum amount that you have to get, and it you just have to work toward that, and there's no magic to it. It's just you I mean, two ways I've been described: too dumb to quit.
Which I discredit. I don't love that as a
And no, there are certain times where if you straight up looked at my books, you'd just be like, why are you doing
yeah.
this? And you have the answer to that has to be because I want to.
Yeah.
Because if there's any other answer, you'll quit
Yeah.
because it's just not worth it. So that's my experience.
Yeah.
I do not wish that on everyone for sure, but it is if it's just some foundational small business stuff. Save as much money as you can your first year because you're going to get that phone call from your client
Yeah.
that says, "Hey, we lost funding for whatever. We can't pay you, and you were revenue forecasting." Or save as much money as you can because you're going to get that call from the accountant, like, "Hey, we should have started running payroll 6 months ago. Your K1 distribution, you owe all this on
Yeah.
your stuff." And so, it just save as much money as you can. And I know that's gonna sound hard, it's gonna sound tough, but find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Because business is cyclical; it goes up, it goes down. Some troughs are higher and lower than others, and so I think those are your just kind of like just as much as you can contain yourself and control yourself. And that might be the difference between the startup and the small business, because like the startup, they just want to grow at
Yeah.
cost to be damned.
Yeah. And
They'll
so
absorb debt,
exactly.
and so that's one of the things that can kill you really quickly as a small business is debt overhead
Yeah.
and debt service.
And there's 2 ways to create to take on money. One is debt financing.
Yeah.
You owe it back to a bank. The other is equity financing. And so the idea with the startup is like, I'll give ownership for money,
Yeah.
but like it's a fire, and you want it to burn as bright as and bold as you can, and
Yeah.
you need to keep putting fuel on the fire. Oftentimes, that fuel is cash.
Cash money.
Yikes. Okay, so I mean, what I heard is save. I'm wondering, did you do anything strategic before? Like when you said you had an itch, you kind of you don't remember the exact moment, but you like knew that maybe this is something you want to do as your own thing.
Yeah.
Did you start squirreling away cash?
Oh, I started kind of making moves to align some jobs that would be mine when I went out on my own.
Oh, so you lined up customers
And clients
before you started a business.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I started asking. I know, right? If you're like, which one of the cameras do I need to look at? If I watched the movie, you probably it's called "Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood."
Yeah.
It came out on Saturday, and it's a Wayans Brothers movie, and probably for you younger people, probably don't know who the Wayans Brothers are, but they have been around. There's 3 of them, I believe. There might be there's 4. One of them's a DJ. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Marlon.
Sean, I can't remember. Yeah. I know their faces. Anyway, the movie, every time they give out this little point, one of the brothers pops up and goes, "Message." And so anyway, that's the message you can take.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about making moves and you're thinking about doing your thing, just make some soft inquiries to potential clients, maybe current clients that you have great working relationships. So I got as Mike Tyson is being quoted for saying, whether he actually did, everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. And so I set a plan, and I had some projects that were going to be mine when I went out on my own in a few months, and went out on my own. The projects came up, I submitted, got selected, and the governor at the time reorganized the Department of Agriculture, and I lost all those contracts. And so that's when I ended up having to look for private equity. So because the banks certainly wasn't going to give an architect a loan in 2010. So the bottom of the real estate market crisis. So like I said, the best laid plans. Like I did everything you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
I had filed my articles of incorporation. I was approved by the state. I got my S corp designation.
Yeah. Ooh, so you went straight into S corp.
Well,
So I want to respect time. We try and keep these at about an hour. And
that's a whole other
right. So S corp, I want to talk about like some of the differences that you've made business by business in organization. Maybe we get into that in another conversation or now. But oh my goodness. So you start this business, everything goes sideways. It makes me think
more down than sideways.
Down than sideways. It makes me think of like Tony's first business, which was also a consulting thing, but I was the deliverer of the services.
Okay.
And so I go into sales mode, get a bunch of clients, get to me what was game-changing revenue. I had my first over $10,000 in revenue month.
Crushing it.
I was like, yeah. And so I'm like, cool, I got a couple of these months back to back.
Yeah.
And so I'm head down. I'm trying to work on the projects and deliver. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, a lightning bolt hits me. And I'm like, I'm 6 weeks away from these contracts being done, or 2 weeks away,
with
or whatever.
Nothing in the pipeline.
And nothing in the pipeline because I've stopped doing the things that I did.
Which is the hardest thing about a service-based, because you want to be it's hard to be the person that asks for the job, that does the job, and is also the person who does the job.
Mm-hmm. So that was my big, because at that stage I was maybe 24 or something, and I was telling myself, I don't want to build an agency. I don't want to have like a team. I don't want to employees. Like that's just more than what I'm looking to do. I want to like keep it small or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was my own kind of demise. I blew it.
Yes.
Because I kind of limited myself in the way that I was thinking about the project. And so, geez Louise, that's a lesson. I think that things go sideways, A. B, you always want to be selling, in the words in closing.
ABC.
Always be closing. In the words of Alec Baldwin in Glengarry Glengarry
I
Ross.
prefer to use Ben Affleck from Boiler Room.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay, even better.
Yeah, ABC always a sale is made on every transaction. Yeah, for sure, and I think I would yeah, I'd agree with all of
Cool.
that. And so if you want to run if you want to be a one person business that is service based, you have to be hugely disciplined on the amount of time that you spend marketing and the amount of time you spend producing.
Right.
Because you have to, like you said, you've got to spend that time making contacts, reaching out, talking to people. But you have to spend the time producing the
Yeah.
work that you just sold.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing, and that maybe that's the product. The difference in the product versus the service is that the product, selling a product, it's much easier to spend the time marketing because you just need to worry about getting your product in and then getting it out, which
Yeah.
is its own other logistics, I'm sure. So
And when I think about the difference between having conversations and selling a service,
yeah.
anything stand out for you in that space? Because it's one thing you can.
You
go
mean
to
trying to sell a service?
Well, I
or
mean,
like
I'm just thinking you can go to breakfast with new people every day of the week forever in a world, or lunches in a world where people go to lunches together. What's the difference between
I remember that world.
between having conversations
Yeah.
and closing contracts and deals and being selected?
I'm not a hard closer. There are plenty of people who will they will tell you have to ask for the job, and so I'm not, I guess, that person. If I think I'm a good fit for the job, I'm going to tell you I think I'm a great fit, but I care more about you getting what you want and what you need than getting another project. And again, that comes back to just being a creative designer type. Like, I care about the work. I don't care about the I want to do the job because I think it'd be a great job or there'd be great clients to work with. I don't necessarily look at them as a business transaction. And so if we end up being friends with most of our clients, and so I just start out with treating them as a relationship, and then fostering that relationship that then hopefully they trust me to do something for them. So
what
about you? I mean, is that your tack?
I would say loosely,
Okay.
but it's more similar than it's different. So what I heard you say is that you show up as a human.
Yep.
And you don't treat them as a prospect so much as
Correct.
a person. So
just
it's like
try to get to know them.
Couple humans.
What are your needs?
Couple humans being humans.
Yeah.
What are your needs? And so the entire sales process that I believe in is when I'm selling you, you're talking. If I'm doing my job.
Yeah. No,
when
for
I'm
sure.
selling you, you're talking.
Yeah.
And so I need to understand where you're at, where you're coming from, what you need, what's missing, what's broken, what gives you anxiety, what does the world look like in a future state where it's better?
Yep.
And then my entire job is to feel like, or mathematically be like the thing that helps you get to that future state
to that point,
where stuff is better.
Yeah. I'm just a tool to help you get what you need and want.
Yeah. And if I think I could help me, work with you and move in that direction with you, and you think it, cool, let's talk about some of the details.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about, like astrophysics and you need someone to do the math, hey buddy, like I got a couple friends that went to MIT, let me look them up. And I think one of the best things you can do as a business is send business away. Or say, that doesn't sound like a perfect
That's not a good fit for us.
me.
Yeah, but this person does that type of. They do that widget all day long.
Or if someone says, "Oh my God, this is so perfect. This is so perfect. You're the best. This is so great." And, cool. Let's talk about some of the details. And so, like, I want to understand, like, where are you on a budget? Because like we can scale our work to fit where you're at. And they're like, "Well, we have like $300 to $400 a month." And I'm like, all right, so there's a big difference in where we are on what clients look like and where you are. Like, let's make sure that that's just not just a number that you're saying because that's what you think you should be spending.
Yes.
Versus like where you're actually at. And so we unpack it. And if it's not a fit, I'm not going down to you.
Yeah.
Unless there's actually a way that I can scrape work
remove scope
so that it fits. The worst thing I think a business can do is like go down in price.
No, yes, and that is so hard to not do your first couple of years.
Yeah, because you want to yes people, and you want to be agreeable, and you want to be loved, and you want to get the work. But if I say yes to, and I'll say like a $300 a month client,
Yeah.
the way that our business is built, that means I can't say yes to a $3,000 a month client.
Yeah. That's it. Yes. Yes. Exactly. I know
And
it's
these
tough.
things, man, if you could go back and tell yourself, like, yo, breathe.
Yeah.
Like the 2 months that it takes, you pay for it in the first 2 weeks of
Yeah.
work with a better client.
Yeah.
And typically there is a correlate. Typically.
I will say but I say this to all my clients, especially in the residential world, which is a different market than the commercial and state level stuff, is I interview them as much as they interview me, because it becomes a marriage, it becomes a relationship, and we have all the expectations, or we have all the issues of relationships, of expectations, of money, of time, and so we need to all make sure we're on the same page and believe the same thing. And it's really hard to say no, because you feel like you are letting them down, and like that's, you want a client to really just get me, just say, Miles, I'm really disappointed.
Yeah.
Like I expected more, and that, dude, I will crawl into a hole so deep, so deep.
So it's funny you're mentioning relationships. I think episode 8 will be about relationships.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: we're hitting the hour buffer. We have just scratched the surface of business. Our next business conversation is going to be slightly more tactical and practical, in my opinion.
Nuts and bolts.
Because
you got to understand why you want to do it.
Why you want to do it, and then we're going to say, all right, well, here's what expenses look like in the world that we're currently living in, and we're not giving tax advice, but like here's some stuff, like we're going to do some disclaimers in case we said anything that needed to be disclaimed in this episode. Here's a retroactive disclaimer for everything that came before this.
Neither one of us are accountants,
tax lawyers, patent attorneys, nothing. We don't know that stuff, but we do think that everything we said to me sounds legit.
I can just give you my experience and what I've done wrong.
Perfect. And so with that, in the segue into relationships, I think is going to be really strong. Looking forward to the next episodes on business. Looking forward to the next episodes on Tell Us More About podcasts. If you enjoyed this, go to Tell Us More About.
Yes, we got to. This is where we ask for the sell. You got to go to tellusmore.com, tellusmoreabout.com. Sorry, and then get the YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff.
We should be everywhere at this point. But I think the name of the game is wherever you're hearing this, try and engage with us. Yeah, we'd love to hear what you're thinking. Like,
tell us all the businesses you're doing right.
Yeah, fact check
remind us of how we're doing it all wrong.
But that's it. That's the news for now. Stay tuned for more.
Cue the music. There it is.
There it is. God, working, people.
The logo. Yes.
Pop back up real quick.